So far in 8 weeks, I've gained 15 pounds during my bulk. I started at 195 pounds and currently I'm sitting at 210 pounds. Now, during the first 8-week phase of this bulk, my training consisted of a modified push-pull arms-legs split with higher frequency. I've covered that setup in detail in a previous video that you guys can check out. But at this stage now, and at the halfway mark, it's time to change things up. And now I'm going to explain exactly what my training is going to look like that will push my body weight up to 215 to 220 pounds. Spoiler, we're going old school, really. Now, push-pull arms legs served me really well. I gained 15 pounds using that split. Each muscle also got a lot of individual attention, and the quality of work was very high each session. But there was one major drawback, and I knew about it going into this, and that is the fact that recovery would have to be a huge priority with this setup. With that split, I was training 4 days on and taking 1 day off. And if anybody knows how I train, it's not that fluff and pump style workout that many people do today. Most of my sets are very heavy. Most of the exercises are all big free weight compound movements. And every session I'm in the gym, I'm focusing on some form of progression. So with this setup, due to the rotation, in a 7-day week, I'm actually training mostly 6 days each week. And occasionally, depending how the schedule rotates, it might be 5. And due to this fact, I knew that I couldn't stick this program out that long without fatigue eventually catching up. And at week 8 of this phase, it's that time to dial things back. As now, it's time to bring my body weight up to a number that it's never been at before. To do that, I'm gonna need to eat more food than ever. I'm also gonna need to control how many calories I'm burning in a typical week, especially when it comes to training. At this stage, more rest days, more calories, and quality workouts, that's what's gonna get the job done. So now, to scale back the amount of time I'm spending in the gym, but not scale back on the quality of training, I'm gonna go back to something that I haven't done in a very long time. I'm talking 15 years or so. That is the 4-day torso and limbs program. 4 days torso and limb is what I like to call the upper-lower training program, but for bodybuilders. The typical upper-lower split, that was designed for athletes. That was designed for guys looking to just get bigger and stronger. But now, as a bodybuilder or someone with physique athlete goals, trying to cram every single upper body muscle into one single session and expecting to have the development worthy of competing on, let's say, a bodybuilding stage, that's not really a realistic goal. If you're hammering chest and then you're moving on to shoulders, then to lats, then the middle, upper back, traps, rear delts, you can pretty much forget about having any type of energy or intensity to apply to your bicep and tricep work at the end of that session. But now, if you think about it strategically, you can simply just hammer the entire upper body with mostly compound lifts. Then, after you train the chest, the shoulders, and the back, you can cut that workout there. Move the isolation work that you need for biceps and triceps to the next day and perform those fresh before your leg day. That would mean coming into the gym the next day and simply spending a few minutes attacking the arms. You can then move on to your lower body work with little to no impact in recovery or fatigue for that session. I don't care how hard you train arms. It's not going to noticeably impact your performance on your RDLs, your leg press, or your squats. But try training the entire upper body. And now, after being in the gym for 60 or 90 minutes, let's say, try having an effective arm workout then. Let me know how that goes. So enter torso and limb split. Now, another major benefit, not only it being an upper-lower split specific for bodybuilding, also takes the meat and potatoes of Arnold's antagonistic split training, and it brings that from a 6-day split down to just 4 days, all while still training the entire body twice per week. Arnold would train the chest and back in one session, the shoulders and arms the next, and then finish off the entire body with legs in the third workout. Then he would repeat that 3 more times that week, making for a 6-day split. Now, anyone who's tried this for a long period of time, they either get burnt out really quick, or they just didn't have enough muscle mass in the first place to deal with a burnout. But if you do, cutting it down for 4 days per week, that'll allow for night and day difference in terms of recovery. And personally, that's where I am at the moment. For me, 4 days per week right now will allow for much better recovery. This will ensure that every session is productive. It'll also allow me not to expend so many calories while training, as I'll be in the gym roughly 2 days per week less than I was previously. And as far as muscle prioritization, this split works very well with my current goals. My chest and back have been the focus this block. And for me personally, I don't need a ton of volume to get my chest to grow. Roughly 6 to 10 working sets per week is plenty, especially if I'm training the chest twice per week. Now, starting with this torso and limb split, I'm only training the chest with 3 to 5 sets per workout. That'll be in the form of flat and inclined dumbbell or barbell presses. And then I have the entire rest of the session to devote to my back and shoulder training volume. The rest of these sessions are mostly spent on lat-specific exercises, with additional work to the middle and upper back with rows. And due to my personal development and my history of training, a lot of the exercises I'm performing currently are a lot more targeted than some of the meat and potato exercises. The big compounds that I use to build my base. Those heavy rows, those heavy T-bar rows, those are all excellent movements, and they've been in my training since day one. But with a setup like this, with higher frequency, and multiple muscle groups in each session, they can be very taxing and very demanding movements. So advanced lifters are going to need to prioritize these type of movements strategically. But now if you're a beginner or an intermediate, these should still be staples even with a split like this. But if you're a bigger, more advanced lifter, they could make the session very demanding overall. And if you're not careful, some of the other muscle groups that you have to train during that session, they might get a little bit of less quality work done just simply due to fatigue. So that's one challenge with this setup. But in my case, currently, with the areas of my back that I am focusing on, that requires a lot more work on things like lat pull downs and lat specific high and low rows. So currently I'm actually using a lot more cables to accomplish this in my training. These are all less systemically demanding, but don't get it twisted. These are things that I'm literally doing for just one block of training. This is not how I train the entire year. And due to how I'm training at the current moment, these exercises, they fit very well with this style of split training. Now, when I'm hitting those heavy compound lifts, especially with my strength and at the advanced stages that I'm currently at, other split options, they might actually be more ideal to fit those in. But again, if you're a beginner or intermediate, that's not even an issue that should concern you at this stage. Hit those main movements as hard and as frequently as you can. Now, to cap off those torso workouts, for the delts, most of my work is simply lateral raise variations, focusing on hitting the side and the rear delts through isolation. With that said, there's minimal direct trap work and minimal overhead pressing. I'm talking one exercise per week for each of them. And finishing off those harder back and chest sets in that torso session with some lateral raises, that's a great way to finish off the workout. But at that point, even if I wanted to do arms, there's no way the quality of work would be high. So the next day, I'm coming back in. I'm really here for leg day, but the first 20 minutes of that session, I'm hitting the biceps and triceps. Essentially, what I'm doing is I'm finishing off the work that I skipped from yesterday's session. Again, this works very well for me at the moment simply because arms, they're not a weak point. In fact, the amount of hours I put into arm training over the years of lifting, I could probably not train them anymore and they'd still be a strong point. So simply, just for maintenance, I train biceps and triceps with 4 direct sets twice per week. That's very simple and easy for me to bang out before leg day training. And after the work is done, that's where the real hard training happens that day. That leaves me room to hammer the calves, the hamstrings, and the quads. Now, most people might say, if arms aren't a priority, shouldn't you just train them at the end of the session? In most cases, yes, absolutely. But this is a unique case. I don't think you should train anything after you've completed hitting legs. If you have the energy to do so, probably didn't train legs properly at all. Now with this setup, I'm actually already 1 week in, and the sessions have all been a high quality work so far. But of course, I will adjust my training as needed and fill you guys in on the process. This, however, is my advanced torso and limb split, again, specifically for me. But for someone who needs to gain mass everywhere, the way I'm running it might not actually be the most well-rounded program for you, as the volume, attention to body parts, and specific exercises used, they're all customized to my physique and where I need to improve the most in terms of muscle mass. If you need to gain mass overall, you need a base program that accomplishes this. A system that was designed to build more muscle to your entire body equally. And if you want the program to do so, and you want to train 4 days per week with this setup, make sure to check out my 4-day old school torso and limbs program down below. And if you need other options for training, they're there as well. And as always, if you want to see more of the best original bodybuilding content just like this, make sure to hit subscribe.